Alright guys, today we're going to graph logarithmic equations. It's going to be very similar to graphing exponentials, so let's go ahead and take a look. Alright, first things that we should talk about is the general logarithmic form. It looks kind of familiar. We have a minus h. Okay, that h is going to shift left, right. It's still going to be the opposite. So that's still the similar thing that we've been doing all year when we come with these graphing. Our k, that plus k, that's going to shift it up or down. It's just exactly what you think it would. So it's very similar. Those are our shifts for logarithms. Now when we graph, here's how we're going to graph these. First, we find out or identify the shifts. Okay, then we're going to rewrite it as an exponential because there's not really a way to graph logs, but we can graph exponentials, and we know how to write logs as exponentials. So then we're going to use, for exponentials, so I'm talking like when we had 2x equals y, okay? But now it's going to end up looking like this, 2y equals x. So our x and y are going to have flipped. So we're actually going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, 2 for our y values. Now then we'll solve for our x, or we'll figure out what our x values are, we'll graph it, and then shift it. So at this example, we can't graph a log right from the get-go. The first thing we need to do is rewrite it. So it's going to be 3 to the y equals x. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my xy table. Okay. Now since the y is the exponent, this is why this is a little bit different than exponentials. The y is the exponent now. So I'm going to have -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay. Now we're going to figure out the x values. So for our x, well, this is just 3 squared, 3 to the first, 3 to the 0, 3 to the -1, or 3 to the -2. Now, 3 to the 0 is just 9. 3 to the first is 3. 3 to the 0 is 1. Now, 3 to the -1, I can just do that in my calculator, do 3 and then to the -1 power. Or I can just do this as 1 over 3. Either way works. If it's a decimal, I think it's 0.3 repeating. Okay, 3 to the -2, that's going to be 1 over 3 squared, which is 9. Or if you do it in the calculator, it's 0.1. Okay, repeating. Now let's go ahead and let's graph these points. Okay, so I'm going to plot the bottom ones first. These ones, 0, 1. So y is 0, x is 1, so it's going to be right there. Okay, this is 3, 1, so I'm going to go over 3, up 1. Okay, 9, 2, over 9, up 2. There's that point. And the next one is down 1, so -1 is my y value, so it's 1/3, -1. So I'm going to go over 1/3, but then down 1. And it doesn't have to be exact, but about about 1/3 over. Okay, then 1/9, I know that's going to be closer to 0, but it's going to be down 2, so it's going to be right there. Okay, all I did was I plot those points, and I'm going to draw my graph. Now remember when we had exponentials, it had an asymptote. It never crossed that horizontal line. For logarithms, they have a vertical asymptote. They're never going to cross an up and down line. And I can kind of see that line for this one is just this y-axis. Okay, it's going to get really close, but never cross it. There's no shifts for this one, so that's my graph. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my shifts. Well, this has a -1 on the outside. It's not inside of the parentheses, so I know it's going to go down 1. Okay, now I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to deal with it later. I'm going to go ahead and just rewrite this as an exponential. So it's going to be 2 to the y equals x. So 2 to the y equals x. So same thing. Now we're going to use our y values that are going to be -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay. So then now I'm going to go ahead and do 2 squared. So 2 squared, well, that's just 4. 2 to the first, well, that's just 2. 2 to the 0, anything to the 0 is 1. Okay. 2 to the -1, okay, you can get 0.5 or 1/2. If you use your calculator, it'd be 0.5. Okay. 2 to the -2 is going to be 1 over 4, or if you use your calculator, it'd be 0.25. Either of those would work. It's okay to use decimals when you're doing your plotting your points if that makes more sense for you. If not, you can always just use your fractions. Okay, so let's plot these points. So this first one, I'm going to start with this one right here. So it's going to be 4, 2. So 4, 2. So over 4, up 2. Next one is 2, 1. Over 2, up 1. Next one over 1, up 0. It's right there. Next one's over a half, down 1. That's a -1 right there. Okay, this one's a fourth, so we know it's getting closer to 0. And there's our next point. Okay. Now, you can draw it in there, but remember we do have a shift. We do have to go down 1. So I'm going to shift all these points down 1. Oh, it's a little off. Down 1, down 1. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and graph my line, and notice it gets really close to that but never crosses it. Okay, and there's my graph. Okay, let's take a look at this graph. So I have an x minus 1. That minus 1 is inside of the parentheses, so that's going to tell me that we're going to go left or right. Minus 1, we're going to go the opposite, so we're going to go to the right 1. Okay, so now remember, this is base e right here. Technically, there's a little e right there. So when I rewrite this, this is going to be e to the y power equals x. I don't care about that minus 1. I'm going to worry about it later. I know I'm just going to shift it at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and make my table. All right, so now we have -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, now this is going to be e to the second, e to the first, e to the 0, e to the 0, e to the -1, e to the -2. Okay. Now, you might be like, well, I don't know what to do for these ones. It's an e, I don't know what the numbers. Just use your calculator, okay? Get the second, that L and button, so make sure your calculator says e. So e squared, or e to the second, is about 7.39. Okay, e to the first, so same thing, do the second, hit that L button. Make sure that it says e there, though, so make sure that your calculator says e. So e to the first is 2.72. Okay, e to the 0, well, that's easy, that's just 1. Then I'm going to do e to the -1st, which is 0.37. E to the -2 is 0.14. They all kind of go, I rounded up to 2 decimal places. You could do 3 decimal places if you wanted to. We're just graphing, so we don't need to have an exact, we just need an approximation of where it's going to be. So I'm going to use these numbers. So when I do this first one, I'm going to use that 7.39 and then 2. So we're going to go over 7.3. So think 7.3 is between 7 and 8. So I'm going to go 7 over, a little bit more than 7, then go up 2 and put a dot. Okay. Next one, I have 2.72, so that's going to be a little bit more than 2, closer to 3. Okay, and I'm going to go up 1. Okay, next one, we're going to go over 1, up 0, so right there. Next one is 0.37, so we know that's going to be between 0 and 1. Okay, and the next one, 1.14, so that's going to be a lot closer to 0 than the last one. Okay, now, might be like, okay, I'm done, but we have to still shift it. So I'm going to go ahead and change to red, and I'm going to shift all of these points to the right one. So just think, if it's between 2, we just go over between the next 2. And this one's between 2, we're just going to go over between the next 2. That one's just over 1, over, and over. And notice how that line follows the same pattern. It goes right here, and then it gets really, really close. Hey, remember we had that vertical asymptote that was right here at the y-axis. But when I shift it over left to right, okay, it's going to, the asymptote follows it. So it gets really, really close to this green line, but never passes. Okay, go ahead and give it your practice problems a shot. Best of luck.